turn to the US election and consider what President Trump's victory will mean for the rest of the world. In a moment, we're going to be discussing what his foreign policy might look like and how it's going to affect the situation in the Middle East and Ukraine. First, let's consider the reaction across Europe and speak to the journalist Jamie Smith-Maillet, who's in France this morning. Hi, Jamie.
Hi, good morning.
Morning. What's the reaction been in France, first of all?
Yeah, well, I should probably say from the outset that there's been a real keen interest in this election, and it's been really closely followed at a political level, but also nationally, with a huge level of interest and coverage right across the board. Political level reaction, party leaders really were pretty quick to react to the outcome, some quicker than others, and even President Emmanuel Macron himself, he posted on X on Wednesday morning before the result had really been officially announced by the main network. So he congratulated Mr. Trump, but he also said that he was keen and ready to work with him, as they had done well 4 years previously before, but with conviction and ambition for peace and prosperity, were his words. Elsewhere in French politics, on the left, the first secretary of the Parti Socialiste, the left-wing party, said that it was not time for tears, but for reaction. The hard left in France, so France Unbowed leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon, he was quite critical, actually, of the Democrats in the US, calling out that there was a lack of a real left-wing party for voters to choose, and that the world under Trump would be more tense, calling for caution and determination. And on the far right, there's been a bit of a more cautionary message from Le Pen of the National Rally. So she did send her well wishes to the president-elect for the American and for Americans, saying that the Americans had chosen him. But contrary to perhaps a much more congratulatory message or tone in 2016, and this is perhaps in some ways due to the fact that she's in some ways been purifying the party's image and has a little bit more cautionary at the moment in time. Finally, just on polls, a poll recently published in the national daily Le Figaro following the result suggested that around 3/4 of French people said they didn't particularly take a liking to Mr. Trump. And while the same 3/4 believed that they were not surprised about the results, they were, however, unsatisfied with the outcome.
And Jamie, across Europe then, how have political leaders responded?
Yeah, so I'd say there's probably a bit of a division between the sort of centre leaders or centre-left, centre-right and leaders of the right to the far right. By contrast slightly here with the reaction in France with the National Rally. So Germany, Olaf Scholz, facing, as we've been hearing this morning, his own internal political crisis in Germany after the sacking of the finance minister, congratulated the new president-elect in saying how the countries shared common values, but also stating that Germany is committed to doing its part. He said, "For me, this includes further strengthening our joint NATO alliance and the German-American friendship." A message that was echoed in some ways by, at the European level, Ursula von der Leyen herself, president of the Commission, reiterating the stance, saying that she looked forward to working with Trump, but with a strong transatlantic agenda, insisting on the fact that millions of jobs and billions in trade depended on stability. Finally, far-right message within the bloc, a lot actually praising and celebrating this result. Giorgia Meloni in Italy talked of the sister nations bound in an unbreakable alliance. In Spain, the Vox party leader Santiago Abascal talked about Trump's comeback as the hour for the patriots and that it was time for freedom. And similar echoes across the far-right party grouping, the Patriots for Europe, at a European level.
And Jamie, you referred to it there. What's this result mean then across these European countries where they're experiencing their own polarisation between left and right?
Yeah, well, that's it in many ways. I'd say that Europe at the moment is pretty unstable and divided. Obviously, France is facing its own internal political turmoil, with the three blocs divided within the National Assembly, running up to the 2027 presidential elections, and the far right National Rally still doing very well in the polls. Similar situation in Germany, as we've been discussing, with possibly an early national election next year, the Alternative for Deutschland touched on, the far right also doing very well. Similar situation south of the border in Austria. So there is a lot of political division as it stands, and there will be some parties, notably in the right and the far right, looking to the States for inspiration in some ways as to what's happened, but with caution, as we saw there in polls, not necessarily even supporters of the right and the far right always seeing Trump as a model example for how to progress in their politics. On the other hand, as we've seen here, a strong message from President Emmanuel Macron calling for unity, calling for solidarity, and calling for clarification perhaps in time ahead on the position of the States as regards NATO. The big issues as well, the economy, immigration, they will also be continued to be discussed in Europe, as there are similar issues that are already at the heart of European politics just now. But ultimately, the big question is, will this bring Europe closer together as it stands in unity and solidarity, or will it further divide the bloc?
Jamie, thanks very much. Jamie Smith-Maillet speaking to us from France this morning.
So